Ha! Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to the Gaz Williams Show. Hello to all of you old friends, new friends, and friends who've just been watching the Get Jervis stream. Thank you, Jason, for the shout out. I was also on Sonic State earlier on the Sonic Talk post Superbooth 2025 chat. That was really good fun. And also was on Synthesizer Talk DE on Monday as well, which was also fun. There is lots to talk about. So hopefully all is well and you can see and hear me okay. Hello chatties. If anyone in the chat room can just in fact confirm they can hear. I shall just take a sip of beer. Yes. I haven't been drinking beer at home all year. This is the first beer. This is the first at-home beer, and it's yeah. Oh, I have frozen. Yep. Okay, let me just get that back. That's annoying. I don't know why it does this. I'm assuming I've frozen, but let's have a look. I'll just have a little go. If it's done it again, this is annoying. I don't know why. I restarted the computer. Let's just do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Hello everyone. And then let's go back here. And we're live again. Okay, yeah. It does that. I don't know why. It does it all the time. I restarted everything. Boom! It freezes. Okay. Hope everybody is well and have enjoyed lots of the coverage of Superbooth. Well done, Sonic State, again, for a sterling job. Thank you, Jason. Thank you for the... and congratulations on a year of streaming. Yeah, it's weird. I don't know why it's freezing. Right, anyway, I'm just going to take a sip just to wet the old whistle. On tonight's show, Ali, the unperson, hello. How nice to meet you in person. Not the booth. Yes. Yes, as always, beer. Germans know how to make good beer. Yeah, and yes, the unperson. And Jason, of course. Great to see everybody in the chat room already. That's nice. This is a good and interesting thing we've got tonight. So let's have a look what's on the block. It is the Cycle Instruments Tetrachords. Now, some of you will know this module, maybe not so familiar to others. I think it's absolutely marvelous. I've been meaning to do a stream about it for some time now, and I've kind of chickened out. Because it is quite complicated, but hopefully we'll make some headway with it. Oh, what was that now? The price of this module, I haven't actually looked how much it is at the moment. It is in Australian dollars. Oops. But this is, it's an Australian module, so I don't know how many Australian modular makers out there. I know there is Wrong Electronics, I think, Morgan from there. But yeah, but actually there's been some quite cool things coming from Australia in recent times. I can just maybe move this a little over. See if I can get a little bit more in shot. Okay, now this, as the title of this stream is, it's a kind of music theory module. So the first thing I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to clear everything. So whole song and reset. Okay, so I'm just going from scratch now. So what we've essentially got here is a 4-channel note sequencer. It doesn't create gates, so you need to put gates into it. Now, I think even if you're not interested in modular, I think this brings up some quite interesting concepts. So I said it's like a music theory kind of based module, and I think that's probably a good way of describing it. I'm just going to explain first, though, see if you can get the concept of a tetrachord. Some of you will know what that means, but I thought I knew what it meant before, but it was not until playing with this module that I've actually started to really understand. So a tetrachord really is a grouping of 4 notes. So the name chord is a little bit of a misnomer, but like you could look at like, let's just take a regular major scale, and we could say that's made up of 2 tetrachords. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So up to the octave. So you've got, now if you were to look at that on a piano keyboard, you've got tone, tone, semitone. That makes up 1 tetrachord, and the second tetrachord, tone, tone, semitone. So you can say that a major scale is actually made up of 2 identical tetrachords. If it was a minor scale, you would go tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone, tone, tone. And then depending on the flavour of minor, whether it's a harmonic minor or the melodic minor or the natural minor, will determine what the second tetrachord is made out of, which would generally be, well, if you did 2 minor tetrachords, you'd have tone, tone, semitone, tone, tone, semitone, tone. I'm not describing that very well. We'll do a musical example in a moment. But the basic gist of tetrachords is are these groupings of notes, which are either, and tetra, meaning 4, groupings of 4 notes. Okay. All will be revealed. If this is a bit confusing, well, apologies. I really have kind of wanted to do this for a long time. I've been really nervous about this explanation. But yeah, let me see if I can have a look at the chat room. Okay, so yeah, it's not a cheap module, but it really is. I mean, it does a lot. It does a lot. Actually, there's someone seeing it for €576. This is a very deep module, and it's absolutely incredible, the design. Hopefully I'll do it some justice tonight, but let's take a longer shot of this so we can see this is in my Damaru case. Now this is my second Damaru case. I've got 2 of these Damaru cases. These are cases that are made in Bristol. They're actually made in a little production facility that's in the basement of Elevator Sound, so really pleased to have something that's made in my home city. And this is my second Damaru case, so I've got the 2, and depending on what kind of live performance I'm doing, well, in fact, the most recent ones I've been doing, I've been having both Damaru cases stacked on my stay stand. So yeah, so what we got in here is an array of modules that I've basically built this rig on. I can't quite get it all in shot. Doesn't matter. We've just got a little utility here. The main thing we want to be able to look at though is this one. I'm not going to bother going through the whole rig because that will take too long to go through. But needless to say, there are 4 voices, and those 4 voices, I could probably point them out just briefly. I've got the MCO Mark II, which is a module deserving a stream all of its own. This is the latest from ALM Busy Circuits, and each of the voices, like that's MCO into MFX into the basal delay, so that's like 1 voice. I like these kind of compact voices. And then I've got the Oniroi or Oniri. I like calling it the Oniroi, so I'm going to call it the Oniroi. And then that's almost a thing into itself, but I've got a bread and butter. This is the module that I declared the Antichrist of Eurorack. So the bread and butter is feeding its stereo output into the Oniroi. And then I've got the 4MS spherical wavetable navigator, which is a firm favourite of mine. That goes into the Prism from Qubit, which is a filter and delay. And then I've got the Oxy Coral here, which is a polyphonic module that's actually taking MIDI from the from the tetrachords, and that goes into the C legs. And then I've got a bunch of modulators. I'm not going to go into that stuff just yet. Anyway, what we'll do in a moment, though, is we'll get some music up and try and start to decode what this business is all about, this tetrachords business. So for the view we're going to be looking at today will be focused on the tetrachords. Now, I will actually, there is an important element here that you can't, well, it's just here in the corner here. I've got the div skip from DivKit and Making Sound Machines, and what that's doing is I'm using that as a 4-channel gate sequencer, essentially, and each of the 4 outputs are driving the 4. So output 1, 2, 3, and 4 are driving tracks 1, 2, 3, and 4 on the tetrachords. Okay, so let's just stay here for the main part. So yeah, I will pull out a little bit and explain a little bit more about the other things as we're going on, but I really want to make this the kind of star of the show because it truly does deserve some deep dive. Okay, so I mentioned it's like music theory, and like a music theory device, and I don't know if that's the right way of describing it, but it's so focused on bringing, interesting harmony and melodic kind of development into Eurorack that I think that's probably, there's a lot of music theory behind it. But don't be afraid if you don't know music theory. It's actually you can do a lot of kind of hit and hope stuff on it. So to get things going, then I'll get a voice going. So I've got my clocks. I've got clocks going into it, and I can. You probably can't see here. Yeah, you can. We can see that there's flashing here on channel 1, meaning that channel 1 is receiving some gate. Okay, and then what I'll do is I'll just set it to be in like a major scale now. So you've got a set of controls for the first tetrachord and a set of controls for the second tetrachord, and they're more or less identical. There's only one little difference, but they're more or less identical. So if I was just to put in a straight sequence of notes into this, I would just see that it's just simply going up and down, well, just up through a major scale, okay? Or, in the correct terminology for this module, it's playing 2 tetrachords, one after another. So, if I was to make this first one a minor tetrachord, you hear the third step, still playing a major tetrachord on the bottom, but a minor now if we make this one a minor, 2 minor tetrachords makes a Dorian scale. So, okay, so you kind of think, is this it? Well, no, gosh, no. But, I could take notes out and I could make this different lengths. But, my goodness, there's so much to this. I am a bit nervous. But, Caitlin is saying that Dorian's your favourite. Yeah, Dorian is lovely. So we'll stick in Dorian for a moment. Okay. So, and now if I wanted to, I could speed up the gates, go into it. But also, I could change the pattern. Let's just fill all the notes in again. And what I could do with this control is I can tell it to move in a different pattern. This is now just moving down. So the concept of patterns on this is a little bit different from what it would normally mean, but it's more or less a good way of knowing, because we can create multiple patterns and then we can move through the patterns. So I could go a few other patterns here, alternating, which is quite nice. Now, we can also change where the which octaves it's playing with a spread control. And then just tucked here, there's an inversion control here as well. Now things get kind of interesting when you start to modulate these various parameters, and I think that the modulation and the way you set up modulation on this thing is really good. Almost sets a standard for me about how modulation should be. Incidentally, we're listening to the DigiWave on that's the DigiWave on the ALM MCO. There's lots of different. That's this module here. There's lots of different models we could choose. Try a different one. This has actually got presets in here. Okay. Again, this is all really super basic the beginning stages of this kind of thing. Again, I could change the type of speed or that we move through this. And we can kind of do all sorts of modulations to change it going fast and slow. Now, let's bring in another one. Slow that one down a bit. What I might do... Thanks, Tom. Yeah, it is. It's a good sounding module. So what we're hearing here, I'll just fade out the MCO a moment. Just some bread and butter. Now, some of you will have seen the bread and butter. Ryan's asking if, as the ECO, I think you mean the MCO, got a filter built in. Some of the models do, and some of them don't. The ones that don't tend to have some sort of timbre control, which works a bit like filters. But we can see now, I've got another voice going on playing a super simple thing here. I tend to sort of clothe it with effects. This is coming off the Oniroy as well. Okay, let's bring... So we'll just work with 2 tracks for a moment. And you get this really nice kind of polymetric... Now, on the Tetrachords, you can have a kind of master scale or a master key, or you can have them kind of independent from each other. I generally keep them always locked into a master scale. So that means I could transpose this. So you can hear it transposing everything. Yeah, I think I'll just go on a bit of a jam for a bit, just to and then I'll backtrack and explain a few things of what I've been up to. Plenty to occupy yourself with this. Oh yes. So this is the sort of thing I've been spending hours doing. I find it really quite intoxicating, and I'm just out of sight here. I'm using a little Bafaco stereo mixer for adjusting the levels of the 4 channels. So if I bring out all of the layers now, let's fade them all out. Okay. So it's this kind of interconnectedness of the key and the kind of and the transitions. Now it gets interesting because we can do all sorts of modulations. So one of the things I particularly like about this module is you can move away from being in one key. You can do meaningful key changes. And one way to do that is by just moving a tetrachord, changing changing the shape of a tetrachord. So the different tetrachords, as I mentioned, you know, you've got like tone, tone, semitone, tone, tone, semitone, tone, tone. There's only so many combinations. I think how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think there's 6 combinations that you can have of notes, whether they're next door neighbors, out of 4 notes that is, whether they're next door neighbors or, you know, a tone or a semitone. A semitone being a next door neighbor, a tone being next door but one, if that makes sense. So just to go back to that example now, let's just, so look, if I just change the tetrachord, the first tetrachord here, and then back again, and again, let's go here, put some more notes in. Change the bottom one as well. So we're actually kind of changing key here. So again, taking it more into the darker. territory. And maybe morphing it back into safer places. So you can kind of move through keys and scales, you know, and then transpose, in key transpose. And this is interesting because this moves us through, it keeps moving us up the octaves. So you can turn this really fast, look. But that's a push encoder. If I push and change it, then it does like a hard transpose. But in the key of C, take it into C sharp, into D, and back down to C again. So you can kind of move into, and like key. And a disclaimer, Cycle Instruments did send me this module. They'd seen me on Sonic Talk talking about how difficult it is in modular to have a coordinated key change. Yeah, you could snap the key and, you know, you could change, you could change the scale if you're using pitch quantize. But like all your different oscillators, you'd have to try and just change all of the roots of the oscillators to change key. So it can be quite difficult. And Cycle Instruments basically set out to try and figure out if there's a way to be able to bring like oodles of music theory kind of ideas into a module. And I think that they've really succeeded in many ways because it is a very playable module. It really is a very playable module, and that's important. Yes, first beer at home in 2025. So cheers if anyone else is having a drink. Mr. Spoon, hello. Mr. Spoon is an incredible musician from Bristol. Great to have you here. What's that? Having a beer? Me and Ryan are proper late night. We have long late night discussions about things. So he's there. Wagu's having Lagunitas IPA. Cheers. So, okay. So, let's get back to it. Yeah. So I was a bit hesitant to do a stream about this because I know that it definitely gets complicated quite quickly. So I was hoping to just by starting it simple and just kind of showing you, it gets quite sophisticated quite quickly, and there's an awful lot of stuff built into this as well. You can see, well, I hope you can see that there's a lot of buttons. You got the main performance buttons and the main performance knobs, but there's also lots of small buttons dotted around the interface and sort of like utility buttons down here. These four bigger buttons pertain to track selection: track 1, track 2, track 3, track 4, and they've got like a kind of a definite color scheme, so you can see what's going on. But the next button down in the utilities is the mod button, and I do think this is one of the best implementations of a modulation routing system that I've come across, and we will do some of that, so to justify that claim. Okay, actually, why don't we do something like that first? I think what I'll do to keep this simple so we can see it moving, we can see it working, I'll just have one track playing. Let's try a different, we'll try a different engine now from the MCO. Okay, this is the BC 8000. This is based on the Roland JP 8000 Super Saw. I'll just, yeah, Super Saw. I'll just load in a preset. It's also going through a delay here. So I'll leave the delay in just to keep things kind of nice. But what we're going to do is, though, I'm going to try and explain a little bit about how the modulation works, because it is it's quite unusual, but very nice. So we've got 6 modulation inputs. Oh, I should also explain, actually, before we do that, we've got 4 CV outputs. So there's only 4 outputs on this, 4 CV outputs, 1 output per channel. But we've got 4 gate inputs or trigger inputs, which advance each of the 4 tracks. As I say, I can control that here, slow it down. Okay, and let's just have it move up, just bog standard. Let's just take all of this out. In fact, I'm going to, for sake of simplicity, song reset just takes us back to a default. So I'll just do that again. Okay. I can't remember what I've got going on the voice here. I'll just have this voice with an effect on to keep it sounding a bit nicer. Let's go minor, just be a little bit cooler. Back to Dorian. A little less cheesy. So as I say, we've only got 4 CV outputs. And but we've got 6 modulation inputs and 4 trigger inputs, and that's, oh, and there's MIDI in and out as well, just tucked in under here. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'll take out a few of these notes and we'll call this pattern 1. Okay, I hold the pattern button down, and there's a left and a right. You can see there's a left and a right advance kind of keys here. They won't do anything at the moment. Well, yeah, they will, rather. They'll just reset it. So I can just keep resetting it. But if I hold pattern down and press right, oh, you can't quite see because of the angle, but and there we go. There's a light has appeared over the second step to indicate we're on the second pattern. Oof, you just about see it. You can just about see it there. But if I then press this button now, we've gone back to pattern 1. So at the moment, pattern 1 and pattern 2 are identical. The only difference there is when I press it to change it, it changes it and it resets. But other than that, they're identical. So what we'll do is, on pattern 2, is I'll just transpose it up a bit. And I'll just change that around like that. Make it a little bit different. Okay, so here's pattern 2. Let's go back to pattern 1. Okay, and then to pattern 2. So then I'll create a third pattern. Okay, which is just, it's just duplicated the pattern, the last pattern I had selected. And then I'll just change this again. I'll just change it. I'll keep the note numbers the same, the same amount of. Okay. So we've got three patterns, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, we can see that changing 2 back to 1. Okay. So if I then brought in some more stuff going on another track. Just a little 2-note pattern there. Okay, so pattern 1 will just be that repeating note there. I'll take that out. That's pattern 1 on track 2. Okay, pattern 2. Then pattern 3. And it's following the, you know, I've made the in-key transposition change per pattern there, so pattern 1, just that repeating note. Maybe make more sense if it's on a root, perhaps. Okay, let's bring in the other one now. And I really enjoy having the different gate sequences, playing around with the gate sequences is really good fun. Okay, pattern 2. Back to pattern 1. Back down to pattern 1. Okay, so the reason we're doing this is we're going to set it up to be, ooh, sounds celestial, thank you very much. So what we're going to do now is, let's just take these out for a moment while I explain. I'm going to come back to this view a moment. Here, we've got a very slow sequence going on. This is a little 4 HP module that's in a 1 HP adapter. Yeah. Just grab one. Yeah, Ryan, who's in the chat, he made these. And they are, so thank you, Ryan, for these. So you can put a 4 HP, or you could put two 2 HP or a 3 HP module into there, turn it on its side, and then you can put that into a 1U. Ryan's got loads for sale. Yeah, so they work really well. So it means, like in this case here, we can see this 4 HP module is horizontal, but because it's a step sequencer, it actually works great in horizontal mode. Okay, and I've got a PAMS down in the bottom right that we can't quite see, and that is the thing that is driving. That's sending a clock, so the speed of this that's running along here is governed by a clock from PAMS. Like so. And I can make it go really fast. Yeah. On here, are little switches. It's just an 8-step sequencer. It has got a reset, so if I could set resets in if I wanted to do different step lengths. But the way this works, I think you'll find, is quite cool. What I like doing though is giving it a really super slow, right? So I'm doing divided by 4 of the master clock here, and we can see that it's moving at a real snail's pace change. Okay, and that in this particular case is what we want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to modulate the tetrachords. So the tetrachords changes pattern every time it receives a gate. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to go into mod. I press the mod button, and now I'm going to choose I should have done a better angle on this, I'm afraid, but yeah, because there's these little lights that are above. We can kind of see them a little bit better on the bottom here, but there's these, the first 6 of these 8 buttons are let you select which of the modulation inputs. So I'm going to pick 1. So now I'm going to configure what that modulation is. Now that's receiving gates from this little step sequencer here, and because it's getting gates, I want to tell it it's getting gates. And this button in the bottom here, this one, where we're in the mod mapping, I can toggle this. You can just about see the light above it, and it'll let you do unipolar, bipolar, or gate modulation input. Push it again, and then that's like just a unipolar, and press it again, and now it's flashing. And that's flashing to indicate now that we've configured gate 1 to be modulation 1 to be a gate. Now we can map that modulation to as many parameters as we want on as many tracks as we want. So every time it receives a gate, all the gates are off, by the way, at the moment on this. They're all switched on this little step sequencer. They're all off at the moment. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put 2. I'm going to flick 2. I'm going to flick 2 in, 1 and 4. Okay. So every time this slow sequencer passes gate 1, and gate 5 rather, it'll send gates. And then each time it receives a gate, we're going to tell mod 1, I'm going to hold mod, and I'm going to say I want it to affect the pattern advance button. Okay, so now I'll come out of mod, and what will happen is every time, actually, let's just speed this up so we can get it really, so we can we'll be able to see this happening. Let's go back here, and you can see that's kind of now jumping through our 3 patterns. So if we were to hear this, let's slow this down because to back where it was, and then this little sequencer, as it's working its way slowly through, it's on gates 7, 8, we'll get a change now. So I've been finding this really ace for live. In fact, I often just have one step. So I'm in the scale I'm in that one pattern for a while, and then it'll change in, we're on gate 8, here we go. There we are. So it kind of moves us out now of that kind of, where you get really bored when you get stuck in a sequence for ages. But you know, if I wanted it to sort of change more, you know, I could put more steps in to create those changes to happen more regularly. Every it's nice, isn't it? Now, I've got a bunch of different modulation sources going into the tetrachords, and I can make things move around more. Oh, it's getting a bit jazzy there. What I really like about this is it's all kind of, I can morph and change everything with the various controls that I've got. I'm not like locked into sequences as such. I kind of am, but you know, I can just change things up on the div skip and get some different patterns happening. In fact, let's do that. What I'll do is I'm going to slow things down. Have a few. There's loads of performability in this rig. What's nice is I can just switch out. It's not going to change the pattern. It'll stay in the same pattern. And then, you know, I can just reach over, flick a switch, and I know at some point when this slow sequence gets there, we'll get that change happening. The div skip is great because you can just mute them. Okay, yeah, so let's just go here for a mo. I'm not sure how long to stream for. I've been on for about 49 minutes so far. I'll probably go on a little bit more, but you know, great. Thank you so much for joining me. Axis Modular, hello, nice to see you there. Yeah, so my two Damaru cases then, so this being my, I tend to have this one on the top, and then I have the other one on the lower tier. I have the Oxy 1 controlling the lower one, and that's brilliant. and then the top one tends to be this combination of the div skip and the tetrachords. But what I'm going to be doing over the next few months is trying to work on how the oxy one and the tetrachords can really kind of play nice together using MIDI. And I'm curious about that. I think it'd be great to be able to... well, I have been doing that, but I've had MIDI coming out of the tetrachord and going into the oxy, and that's actually really cool. But I'm working on that. So I'd like to do more of that at the moment. Yes. So I feel like I'm just scratching the surface of the tetrachords. It's a it's a big module. What is it? I think it might be 32 HP perhaps. So obviously takes up a lot of space, but really in a kind of rig like this, what's this now? Is this 100 and, oh gosh, I should know this, 106 HP, is it? I can't remember. Maybe someone could help me there. But it's a big module. In fact, I've got quite big modules in this rig. It's much bigger than in my other one. The Oniroy is a big module. The spherical wavetable navigator is a big one. The C legs is a big one. These ones, pretty small, but there are a lot of big modules in here. But with something like the tetrachords, it thanks Tom, it's 104 HP. Tom Curtin, of course, is the rather splendid chap who accompanied me on our trip to Superbooth last week. We had a Airbnb together, and Tom was on my show a few months back. He was showing me his Polyend Synth, and he's done some fantastic patches on the Polyend Synth, and during Superbooth spent some of Superbooth helping out Polyend on their stand, and they were very grateful about that. So if you have got a Polyend Synth, then check out Tom K. That's our Tom. It's yes, it was epic. We had a great time. But yeah, Tom's made some great patches on the Polyend Synth. I was going to do a stream about the Polyend Synth tonight, and the reason for that is I'm using it on a session tomorrow, and I wanted to kind of program a few patches. But I wasn't really feeling quite up to speed with it yet. But the reason for that is, and I'm sure many of you'll know, Jason, I think, did it on his show last week. There's this new synth engine called the DWA, and I know Tom's made some patches for that. I'm sure most of you are aware of that, but if you're not, I think what's great about that new synth engine is I think it's kind of the missing engine from what it first launched with, because it lets you bring in your own samples. I mean, it's a sort of wavetabley kind of thing. It's a dual waveform synthesizer. But yeah, the Polyend Synth is growing, and there is also another excellent instrument in the Polyend Synth, because you can assign the synths, as you know, to the different. You can have 3 synths simultaneously, and you choose which of the engines you want. Very similar in a way to the MCO that I've got here, in that you got different types of synth voice. So the Polyend Synth has got, I think it's maybe 8 different. Maybe, I'm not sure. Different sort of instruments that you can load, and then you can have 3. But there's another one now which is a MIDI instrument. So you can have a MIDI instrument which you can have, I think, is it 4 pages of CCs, and you can custom configure those CC pages as well. So you could have your Polyend Synth with two of the built-in synths, and then your third one could actually be, so when you select that, that could actually be a MIDI instrument controlling an external synth. So that's new as well. So I think maybe the new synth engine, the DWA engine, has probably got the more headline grabbing. But actually so you could in fact though just configure it as three separate MIDI instruments, all going out of different MIDI channels, and all with different CC mappings as well. So yeah, it's a bit of a bargain, I think, the Polyend Synth, for all of the things that you get within it. But yeah, I thought I should mention that. DWA means two in Polish, hence the samples as two oscillators. I didn't know that. Thank you. Yeah, so yeah, I really recommend the Polyend Synth. I'm going to be using it with my duo with Greg White, Quasimodal, not Quasi-MIDI, Quasimodal. Speaking of Quasi-MIDI, I did actually see the great Jörg Scharf at Superbooth. Good friend to me and certainly to Jason as well. Brilliant man. And he was one of the main people behind the Quasi-MIDI synths in the 90s, and now runs Radical Technologies. Really great. Oh, that's interesting. I don't think so. But I think maybe with the Polyend Synth, I think people are maybe a little standoffish with it, perhaps because it's got pads on, rather than traditional keys. But I think when you're using it with all three synth voices, like the way I use it with Quasimodal, is I'm usually, one hand is on my modular rig, and then I can reach up and I can kind of like play. I can kind of go between the three synths in interesting ways. In a very small footprint, the grid layout works actually fantastically for me in that particular setup. So I think it's quite a different instrument. Polyend have a habit of making interesting, different things. The Medusa, for instance, was an extremely different synthesizer. I think it might have struggled in the marketplace a little bit just because it was just quite so very, very different. I think it was a real near hit, the Medusa. I really like it. I just wished it had had a stereo path. It was very much it was a monophonic synth in terms of stereophonic mono. So it's a bit frustrating having two monos, isn't it, with synths? Because you could indeed treat it like play it as a polyphonic synth, albeit in mono. I think if it did have stereo facility within it, it would have been amazing. But I think it was sharing filters, or it was sharing certain elements. It could only be mono. But I feel that if it was stereo, it would have been amazing. It does really benefit from stereo processing downstream of it. For those of you who ever see a chance of getting a Medusa, I would recommend it. It's it's a quirky one. I'll do a stream with the Medusa. I haven't used it on a stream for quite a while, but I'll bring that out at some point. Whoa! Is that for a Polyend Synth? Holy moly, that is amazing. Yeah. So that is a bargain, because it really has got so much in there. And it's very creative and flexible synthesizer. Wow, I mean, you can just use it, like you could just load it up with three of the granular engines and have it as a bit of a granular workstation. Yeah, it's I'd highly recommend it. I mean, especially now with the added MIDI functionality. Polyend are good as well at bringing out updates. So I know it's got this new synth engine now. I wouldn't be surprised if there are more synth engines down the line. But there's already plenty to be getting on with. But I think that was the thing that it was missing. I think it was missing a more kind of sample-based... I mean, you could do granular stuff, granted, but if you wanted to sort of bring in samples and treat it just more like a sample-based synth, you can kind of do that now with the DWA. Oh yeah. Very good point. Very, very good point, Tom. Thank you. Yeah, you can remap the colors for each of the synths as well. So in the version 1, it was just the blue, pink and yellow pads, but now you can change them to whatever color that you want. Yeah, good point. Thank you. Well, yeah, 325. Yeah, the Moog Messenger is definitely a good, a keenly priced synth. Really, I think I've imagined that's going to do very well for Moog. I had a go of it at Super Booth, and Tom and myself watched Myla Melodies do what was frankly a stunning set. I hope that comes out in full at some point in the Moog room using, was it 3 DFAMs and a Messenger, and it was very, very good. It was very good indeed. I was so proud. I was so proud of him, especially as we were pretty wasted together with Tom as well, and the My Volts crew at 3 a.m. the night before. So yeah, he smashed it. I was most impressed. Right, okay. This is all digressions from this. Okay, so I was mentioning earlier that I was being a little bit nervous about covering this, just because I feel in order to do it justice, because it's deep. It is very, very deep, and what we've looked at it at so far, it really is just kind of the surface. There is like a song mode in here. Now I've never actually got that far to use the song mode, but I haven't found the need for it so far, to be fair, because I've really liked being able just to move through the patterns the way I've been doing it. And I find that pretty satisfying. But yeah, there is a song mode. Also, there's a great feature, and I'd like to see this feature on other things as well. You've got a latch control, and I'll just show you the latch control. Let's just make sure I've got the pattern will stay the same. Let's get that on the roll. Okay. So if I wanted to change a bunch of these settings here, so long as I'm holding down latch, I can change a bunch of them. So for instance, I'll hold latch down. I'm going to change in. You can see it's flashing there. It's still lit up, meaning that's what's playing. That's flashing. I thought I could change steps as well, but you can't. But you can change. When I let go. Oh yeah, no, it did. It changed the steps as well. Hold latch, putting in a few steps, changing it. Let go. So you can stack changes so long as you're holding down that latch. Let's just do that again. I'm holding latch. changing all sorts of things. Yeah, let go of latch, and then we get all of those changes all happening. I think that's especially cool if you want to jump in the key in a, you know, like a bigger jump or whatever. Okay, so what else we can do then? I was mentioning that the modulation is really great. So at the moment, the only modulation source we're using is this the little step sequencer. In fact, I'll just only use that source for the moment because it's quite easy to maybe demonstrate. I'm going to change the rate of the sequencer. We can just about see it at the bottom here, bobbing along, so make it go really fast, yeah? Okay. Now, I'm going to go into the mod page, hit mod. And once you've hit mod, you stay in that page until you've finished and you hit mod to come back out again. I've got mod 1 selected. I can see it flashing, indicating that I've set mod 1 to be a gate input. Now, if I wanted it, for instance, now, every time it changes, for it to change, in fact, what I'm going to do, because I've already programmed patterns, I'm going to just come out of mod a minute, and I'm going to go song reset. Okay, I'll just put us back to our major scale again. Right, I'm going to go into mod 1. I'm going to set it to be gate again. Okay, now what I'm going to do is, this time, every time it receives a gate, it's going to advance the transposition. Okay, so I'll hold mod, right, put in every time it hits the step, you'll see it change. You can see that light going round there. And it's moving, it's transposing. Let's make it a little bit more interesting. But you can see it's keeping going up the octaves as well. But what is really nice is, if I go back to the mod mapping, okay, I say mod 1, and what I can do is mod turn this. Now I've turned this. Basically, all these that have lit up, I can take out things. So I've taken out everything apart from 3. So what that'll mean is, instead of it moving all the way through every possible, you know, let's come out of there, we'll see it. It'll jump to the, you know, so I've said I don't want it to go to that step, I don't want it to go to that step, I don't want it to go to that step, I only want it to go to those 3 different steps. I think is a very smart idea. Similarly, if we go back now, mod 1, I'm going to have it change the inversion. And we've got, again, here, there's 7 different possible inversions. I just choose which of the inversions. I'll just pick 2 inversions. So I don't know if you can quite see here. So that's only going between the 2 that I've selected. That is a nifty way of doing things. So I'm just using a gate, but I'm able to select which elements I want, you know, which intervals I want it to go to. And I think that's very neat. I think that kind of thing means you can really apply a lot of musical kind of theory knowledge. Yeah, I'm going to probably finish pretty soon as well, so I appreciate it's late for us European types, although the Americans tend to sort of join the stream the later I go. So yeah, so with this modulation, as I was saying, I'm just using a gate here, but if I had an LFO coming in, for instance, you can still do the same sort of thing. You can say that I want the LFO to modulate a particular parameter, but I only want it to I only want it to go there or there, you know, or there and there, which I think is really cool. Yeah. Let's bring in a few more things here. I'm just going to have a jam. I'm going to probably sign off pretty soon, so I hope you've enjoyed this little look at the tetrachords. Strongly recommend it if you're interested in harmony and use modular and want to find ways of doing curious and interesting harmonic stuff. Yeah, fully agree. Oh, crunchy. There's so much. The more modulations you set up, the more musical progressions you can have going on, and each of the tracks can be modulated independently and to different strengths. And do this thing where I change the scale type now. Feel a key change coming in now. There is a thing called pivot modulations in here as well, where you can pivot the key. Just do what you're saying. There's so much you can do on this rig now. So one of the things I really like doing is getting things moving and getting really nice stuff, and then going to the master clock that's controlling everything. So here we go, look, I slow it down, really slow it down. Sending it really slow clocks. So these slow clocks now will it's really slow, maybe a little less slow. There we go. Get some really interesting things happening. Put a few more changes in. I think this is a great psychedelic machine, this is. Just having this master clock. A bit gnarly, and then take it back up now. Whoops. A bit crude, sorry. Yeah. Fade it all out. Okay. Well, thank you everyone ever so much for joining me. I'm gonna sign off now. It's hope you've enjoyed this little look into the tetrachord. I definitely haven't done it justice. It can do so much more. I've been going off for hours on end with this thing, and you do find really some incredible and surprising stuff. So yeah, I think it's really, really good. Oh, thank you, Wagyu. That's really kind. Oh yeah, and actually, yeah, certainly would appreciate that. Thank you so much. And even if you haven't subscribed, which I'm sure most of you have, I'd appreciate that too. Again, I don't exactly know why. I don't know why I'm doing this. One day it will all become clear. Yeah, keep watching those Sonic State videos from Super Booth, because there was an absolute plethora of amazing things. So thanks again everyone for joining me, and I'm going to say goodnight. All right, take care.